Hello, ladies. Let's really talk about imposter syndrome. And not the watered down version people like to throw around online, but the kind that quietly erodes at your confidence over time. It's the kind that makes you question your intelligence, your beauty, your talent, your presence, even when there is clear evidence that you are absolutely capable. And this is the thing about imposter syndrome is that it doesn't just come from insecurity, it comes from conditioning from other people. We're being taught these things subtly and repeatedly. You're really just taught to downplay who you are. So something I notice is downplaying is normalized. I don't know if you all have peeped that, but it's a deeply normalized idea to minimize our gifts, to not step on toes or to not threaten other women. So we're told to soften our language, to shrink our presence down, to pretend that our talents are accidental, to act like our beauty is nothing special. Like if someone compliments you, we're kind of conditioned to be like, oh, thank you. I'm having a really bad day today with my skin, or oh, I'm dealing with some rosacea or some eczema. Like we feel the need sometimes to bring up things that are negative about ourselves when someone else brings up something positive about ourselves. And if we dare to agree with the compliment, it's almost like we're looked down on, like, oh, she's a little arrogant, or oh, she's a little narcissistic, or oh, she really thinks highly of herself. Who does she think she is? We're taught to not make others uncomfortable by knowing our worth, by knowing who we are, by agreeing with the compliment. Instead, we're taught to just kind of minimize who we are in the face of someone praising us or admiring us. So we learn to say, oh yeah, I'm just lucky, or I'm still learning. Like don't take me as the master of this thing because I'm still learning. I don't really know much about this thing, I can recall times in my life where I've tried to counter people's compliments or counter people's praise because I was afraid of them like looking at me as someone who's like a master of something for many reasons, not wanting to be perceived as being better than them, wanting to fit in, again, wanting to minimize just because that's what we're conditioned to do. And over time, it becomes this nasty habit, and that habit eventually will morph itself into self-doubt, which is very dangerous, especially as a beautiful woman with multifaceted gifts and talents and abilities. You have to be capitalizing off of all of your blessings and off of all of your gifts. If you're not, you are wasting your potential, and that's often what happens when you internalize this conditioning. So here's something important to understand, ladies. Beautiful, talented, magnetic women are often humbled on purpose. And it's not always insults, but it's sometimes with silence, with minimization, and with subtle dismissal. So it looks like people questioning your intelligence because of your appearance. Compliments are followed by a but. So a lot of times people are throwing backhanded compliments at you, and your achievements are being brushed off or credited to something else or someone else. And then people often will chalk you up to being too much or too intimidating. And so the scary thing about this is when people misunderstand you or purposely want to misunderstand you just because they're hating on you, if you're not careful, you'll internalize all these things, and then you'll start to lose your light. You'll start to lose your gifts. You'll start to lose your privileges. You'll start to lose your magnetism. And then suddenly you don't have those things anymore, and then someone's destiny swapping with you. You have to remain firm in who you are and stand firm in who you are, and never let imposter syndrome creep in, because people will try to make you feel like an imposter in your own life. You can show up capable, qualified, overqualified for something, and because of people's own projections, because they're trying to humble you, you'll forget who you are and you'll fall into their trap. So you'll start to second guess yourself. You're going to over prepare even when you've already prepared. You're going to over explain even though it doesn't call for you to do that. And you're going to wait for permission from other people when you don't need permission from anyone else. You don't need permission from that man, from your family, from a friend, from a job, from anyone. So the dangerous thing is imposter syndrome isn't always self-created. Sometimes it is absorbed from your environment, from the people around you. And that's why I always say it's so important that you validate and uplift yourself, because if you give others the power to make you, you will absolutely give them the power to break you. So this is what happens when you forget who you are. When you forget who you are, something happens and you begin to doubt your capacity. So you hesitate to try new things. Like you won't try any new hobbies because you feel like, you have to just stick to what you know. People have made you afraid to branch out and try new things. You're afraid to step into leadership. You're afraid to, speak your mind and create ministry and create a community. You're afraid to take creative risks. So if you know that you're an artistic person or you're a creative person or you have the ability to touch people's lives, you're afraid to do those things because of judgment. Or you've forgotten who you are, so you don't even realize that you're actually capable of doing these things already. You hesitate to say yes to opportunities, and you hesitate to be visible. And that's probably the biggest thing that I can relate to, is hesitating to be visible and not wanting to be, especially when I forgot who I was. When I was being abused in my last relationship, when I was in a toxic home for 22 years, I absolutely began to forget who I was. People would always tell me, "You're so beautiful, you have this and that going for you." But I never really believed them after a while because my confidence was being chipped away at. The people who were supposed to be uplifting me were tearing me down, and I was beginning to believe them. So you start asking yourself, am I really good enough? Who am I to do this thing? Because you start to internalize what people say to you. Who does she think she is? Then you start to tell yourself, who am I to think I can do this? What if they find out and I'm not as capable as they think I am? But the truth is, nothing changed about your ability. It really is just your self-concept. Your self-concept has died. And that's what imposter syndrome does. It eats away at your self-concept until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And you almost lose your permission to be who you are. So here's the cure, ladies. The cure is you have to be unapologetically confident. The antidote to imposter syndrome is not more reassurance from other people or from some sort of external validation. It's unapologetic acceptance and confidence. And unapologetic confidence doesn't mean arrogance. It just means you stop asking others to confirm what you already know. You have to start actually owning your gifts. Like, stop being afraid of your gifts, ladies. For me, I'm a person, I've went through that before, where I was afraid of my own potential because I saw how people were acting an ass and I wasn't even in my full form yet. I didn't even reach my full potential. I didn't even reach my full form. And these girls were acting an ass. So I was afraid of actually stepping into myself fully because it's like, look how y'all are acting and I'm not even who I'm supposed to be fully yet. How are people going to behave when I'm actually there? That's not your problem. Stop getting hung up on the future and what could potentially happen and just be unapologetically confident and chase that thing. You'll stop shrinking to be digestible to people. You'll stop auditioning for spaces you already earned entry to, ladies. Some people will try to make you feel like you don't deserve to be in a space because they know that you're great. They know that you actually do. And so they're hoping that they can kind of psych you out and make you feel like you don't deserve to be somewhere so that you'll just kind of self-sabotage and get up out of there to make room for them to thrive, to make room for them to shine. That's really what it is. So you don't need to convince people you belong. You need to decide that you belong. Okay? Confidence isn't loud. It's not this in-your-face type of thing. It's just settled. It's just you saying, I'm talented, I'm capable, I'm beautiful, and I deserve to be here without immediately trying to soften it or water yourself down. Other people's opinions really cannot hold weight in your life because if they do, they will add to your imposter syndrome. And they will put the nail in the coffin when it comes to your imposter syndrome. If you give people the power to make you, you absolutely will give them the power to break you. And I know I said that before, but I need to reiterate this. Because when your confidence depends on praise, outward validation, society's approval or your community's approval, external affirmation, that's when you become fragile. That's when your confidence starts to become very brittle. Other people's opinions literally cannot be the foundation of your self-worth. And I had to learn this the hard way because I was a very outward focused person. I would always look to other people to see if I was on the right track or if I was doing the right thing or if I was doing something that would be socially acceptable. But it got to a point where I realized people were taking advantage of me looking to them for validation. See, especially when you're a gorgeous girl, people want you to need them for something. And a cynical way that people will abuse your need for validation is they will starve you of praise, admiration, just to see you kind of beg for it, just to see how high you'll jump for it. And I'm not the type of girl that's in the business of doing that, at least not anymore. When I was young and naive and didn't know any better, absolutely that's something that I fell into. That was a trap I fell into. But today, absolutely not. So other people's opinions literally cannot be the foundation of your self-worth because most people are projecting their own limitations anyway. they're only projecting their limitations. So from the get-go, we're dealing with a broken person. We're dealing with someone who has a broken mindset, a loser mindset. They don't even think as big as you, but you're looking to them for validation. Make it make sense. Their doubt is not your data. Their discomfort with who you are is not your truth, and them minimizing you is not a measurement of your value. But they want you to believe those things, which is how you combat that imposter syndrome, by doing the opposite. So you have to remember yourself, ladies. You guys have to remember the things that you're naturally good at, the rooms that you've already earned your way into from your hard work, your education, your skill building, your talents. You have to remember the evidence of your competence. Okay, I don't know who I'm talking to today, but I feel like I'm talking to myself too, because sometimes I forget how gifted I am. I forget how well I do things. I forget the things that I've been able to achieve in such a short amount of time, and how I've impacted people already. So confidence really is not pretending. Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. So sometimes you have to start there, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes something that is innate to you. And it's just you acknowledging and really waking up to the reality of who you are. And in this reality, you're not an imposter in your life. You're someone who was taught to doubt yourself. So the moment you stop apologizing for the gifts, you stop apologizing for the talents, you stop apologizing for your skill set, you stop apologizing for being smart, for being efficient, for being quick, for being skillful, imposter syndrome loses its grip on your life. So ladies, drop down in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know how you guys learn to claim your gifts and talents and abilities after someone has tried to stomp it out of you. Let me know your thoughts. I'll also be leaving my email in the description box so you can share your stories with me there as well. Have a lovely day, ladies.